My name is Alex Snodgrass. I am with Carter Products, and we are going to show you how to set up the saw for resaw and small blade. That being said, let's start with this one right here. Sorry. First thing that we want to do before we do anything with the saw, please unplug it. Save the digits, okay? Get our fence out of the way here. We're going to take our table off the saw. Anytime that you do a full adjustment on a bandsaw, take the table off. It will make it 1,000 times easier to adjust the saw. You'll be able to see the upper and lower guides and how they work with each other, okay? Even if you have a saw like this one here where you've got to take the 4 bolts out of the trunnion, it makes it worth the effort to take it off so that you can get that adjustment just right. We'll open this up. Take our blade off. Now, how many of you have blades hanging on the wall like this because nobody showed you how to make them look like that? Well, I'm going to show you an easier way that doesn't require some practice. But first, let's talk about opening a blade, because I've had way too many people say, well, I just throw them. Well, throw a blade, bend a tooth, you've ruined the blade. Let the blade separate in between your 2 hands there, and you'll notice that there's a split on either side. Grab either one, and it gives you a controlled opening every time. When you want to fold the blade, put the back edge on the floor, put it in the arch of your foot so that you're not stepping on those teeth again. Hand palm up. Twist it to you once, twice, and push straight down. Perfect fold every time. No practicing. All right, set that right there for the moment. Now, I'm going to start de-adjusting every one of these guides, opening them up because I want y'all to see step by step how we adjust this saw. And I want everyone to notice that as we adjust, number one, it's going to go extremely fast. There really isn't much to it, but if you do this in the order that I show you, you will get a perfect result every time. Now, first thing I like to kind of go over some kind of boring details, so I apologize for that. But let's start with the tires. If you've got rubber tires, make sure they're glued down. If they're not, what happens is rubber, with that centrifugal force, causes it to sag. It doubles up, throws the blade off. You stop the saw, everything looks normal, and you wonder why your blade got thrown off. More than likely, the rubber tires are not glued down. Make sure they're glued down. Don't pull them off. Put glue on them and try to stretch them back over. All you're going to have is a bunch of glue running down the front of the wheel. Raise it up with a screwdriver or anything. Usually contact cement has a dauber on it. Just kind of run around the tire, both top and bottom. You're good to go. Do not replace rubber tires with urethane tires hoping to get better performance. It doesn't work that way. Urethane tires last longer and don't require glue, so they're the natural replacement if your rubber tires are worn out. But remember, a tire is nothing more than a separation from a steel wheel and a sharp steel blade to keep them from touching and dulling your blade. So again, don't replace your rubber tires for urethane just for better performance. Now, what we're going to do, we've got all of our guides opened up here. We're going to install our blade. We'll go over one more thing before we get into our adjustment. But before we get into our adjustment, I also am amazed. I've been doing this for about 22 years, so I've had a day or two of practice on a bandsaw. But when it comes to putting a blade on a wheel, I'm amazed at how many people tell me the blade should be in the center of the wheel. That is incorrect. The deepest part of the gullet should always be in the center of the wheel. Here's why. And by the way, let me clarify, the gullet is the space in between the teeth. The deepest part of that gullet is what should be in the center of the wheel. Remember, a wheel is crowned. If you put the blade in the center of the wheel, those teeth are out there in no man's land, unsupported, and you're going to get a cut like this. Back them up so that the deepest part of the gullet is in the center of the wheel. Now the tooth is supported, and here's the second thing. These side guides that you have to adjust front to back to compensate for the different size blades, you'll never have to move again because it doesn't matter whether it's an 1/8 or a 3/4 inch blade, the deepest part of the gullet is always in the same spot. That means the side guides never have to be moved again, okay? Now, when it comes to tension, you want to make sure you set that before you begin to adjust the guide. You can follow this gauge here on the back. I'm not a big fan of it because if you aren't using computerized welded blades, say somebody welds a blade an 1/8 inch long or an 1/8 inch short, this now lines up in a 1/4 inch different spot because you've got two sides of the blade. You can use this as a nice reference, but not a guarantee. Before the guides are set, with absolutely nothing but a blade on the wheels, tapping on the side of the blade, you should get no more than 1/8 inch movement either direction. Not pushing, not just tapping with one finger. You should get no more than an 1/8 inch. And it doesn't matter what size the blade is. Could be the large blade or the small blades. Tapping on the side, you're ready to go. Now, the last thing I want to cover before we begin to adjust this is coplanar. I've had way too many people tell me, well, I need to adjust my wheel out because my wheels are not coplanar. Please, please, please do not mess with your wheels. Here's why. Manufacturers set up the wheels for a specific way for a specific reason. How many of you in here have used a belt sander? Probably everybody. When you turn that little knob on the side, what happens to the belt? It takes off. If you don't turn it back, what happens? It keeps right on going. If you line these wheels up so dead perfect, that's exactly what you're going to have is a blade that you can't control and keep in one spot. And when you turn this, you're going to have to back it off and really tweak with it. They are actually angled to each other so that we can turn this knob and it moves and stays. This is pretty much a brand new saw. You'll notice the teeth or the deepest part of the gullet is in the center of the wheel. You'll notice it is not at the bottom. Let me kind of prove to you that coplanar really doesn't exist. I'm going to de-adjust this and bring that blade way forward on the top. Noticed nothing changed down here at the bottom. Please don't mess with your wheels, and if you do, call the manufacturer. They know more about their saw than anybody who thinks they know about a bandsaw. That being said, we've got our tension right. We're going to adjust that to where the deepest part of the gullet is back in the center of that wheel. We're now ready to start adjusting our guides. What, you can't see what I'm saying? Here. Here. How's that? Is that better? No. Oh, sorry. I'm not sure. See, on this setup, it's a little tough to kind of see, and I apologize. I usually keep it on this one for the small one, but we'll try. Does that seem to be okay for the moment? We can back it out just a little bit so you can see maybe both of them. We'll bring it down so you can see both. Sort of. I'm trying. All right, now we've got step number one, making sure the deepest part of the gullet, center of the wheel. Step number two, tension. Step number three, the side guides, where they should be on the blade. Basically, you want the front edge, whether you're using blocks or bearings, you want the front edge to be about 1/16 of an inch behind the deepest part of the gullet. So we're just going to adjust the body to where it is 1/16 of an inch behind the deepest part of that gullet, both top and bottom. Now, you want to get as much of the blade as encased as possible, but this is not the crucial adjustment. The most crucial adjustment on setting up for resaw is the next adjustment, and that is our thrust bearing. It should be 1/16 of an inch, or basically as close to that blade as you can possibly get without it turning. Now y'all are going to notice that when I adjust, I am constantly turning the wheel here. I do not use a feeler gauge. I don't use the dollar bill. They don't work. Okay, remember, you don't know whether you're moving the blade or the bearing. So turn the wheel, because you've got a spring, soft tires, and a flexible blade. The only way to see what is actually happening is by turning the wheel. Now, you can see that we're so close that it's touching just occasionally. Back that up just a little bit. And this may take a couple of adjustments. Make sure that you get this one right. If you get this one dead on, you will have absolute perfect resaw every time. See what happens if that bearing is turning before you begin to cut. You're pushing on the back edge of that blade, causing the front to flex one way or the other. There are generally two reasons why a blade is going to drift. One, the teeth are not in the right spot on the wheel. Two, you're pushing on the back edge, causing the front to deflect one way or the other. So let's do the exact same thing down here to the bottom. Now, there's a way to determine whether or not we've got this just right. I'm going to show you what that is. Okay, boy, this one is just being a little bit obstinate today. All right, now we've got this set up to where neither of those bearings are turning. But, and y'all know that this does not feel real good on the back of my fingers, those sharp points. I should be able to put the slightest amount of pressure on there to make that bearing turn. So close that it looks like it's going to touch, but it doesn't. Okay? Now both of them are turning. If I touch right in the center, they both turn. If I just turn the wheel, neither of them turn. Now, there's only one more step in adjusting this, and that's our side guides. Side guides, again, should be as close as you can possibly get without it actually touching the blade. And every time I say this, as close as you can get without touching, I think of the speech that I gave my daughter's first date. Sorry. Good times. All right. Now, as you can see, there is movement between there. They are not perfectly tight. Side guides are there to just simply bump the blade back into play. If you are rubbing against the side of the blades, you are causing enough friction and heat to destroy the blade. Let's put it this way. Anybody that has worked with steel, and if there's somebody in here that's worked with steel, you can back me up if you'd like. If steel has been yielded, fancy word for bent, okay? As soon as it gets friction or heat, it wants to come back to its original state. So that means even a bearing is going to create enough friction and heat to cause the teeth to come into a line, form a knife edge, and then it's going to seek the easiest route through the wood, okay? So again, the more you can keep that blade cool, the longer it's going to last. Now, we are 100% set up. The last thing we've got to do is put our table on and level it. I'm going to show you how to do that and get it within 3 to 5 thousandths of an inch by using nothing more than a 2x4. And then we generally get to everybody's favorite part of the class, and that is, I bet you all didn't know that we have a little bit of a guarantee. And the reason I say a little bit is if you can get this past my father, God bless you. Basically, if I have done this correctly, well, teacher gets an A. If I have done this incorrectly, everybody gets free guides. What's not to love? All right, drop our insert in, grab us a chunk of pine here. Now, anytime that you're going to level a table up, get yourself a piece of 2x4, and what I'm looking for is just something that I know is flat on both sides. I know it's been joined on both sides, so it's good and flat. Try not to get a piece with a knot in it. We'll plug our saw back in. Got our dust collector on, right down above our work. Now, I know my table is square because I've got my leveling pin set, but even I had to do this the first time. Make a simple cut. Flip the wood over, bring it around back. If the blade will go back into the cut, we know that we're within 3 to 5 thousandths of an inch across the surface of the table, not just up one side or the other, okay? So now comes y'all's favorite part. Take our fence. We'll see if we've done this right. Boy, I hope so. Hate to start the year off incorrect. All right, now when you set your fence, and by the way, anybody that has a fence on your saw, don't try to get everything just perfectly square. The nice thing about a bandsaw, as long as the fence is square or within 1/4 of an inch of being that way, you should be able to get a straight cut. Reason being is a bandsaw blade has kerf. It's wider in the front than it is in the back. So as long as you're within 1/4 of an inch, you should be able to get a straight cut. So we're going to set it up about like such. And no, I'm not going to use that piece of pine. I am going to use a real piece of hardwood. Now, when you resaw, well, I don't like that. We've got just a little bit of a tilt. See if we can get that tilt out of there real quick. When you resaw, we'll have to live with it. Make sure that you feed at a constant pace. What I mean is don't over push it. What happens when you push just a little bit too fast, sawdust gets outside the gullet, rubs against the side of the blade, and then you get that bow in your cut. And that's generally from pushing just a little bit too fast. And if you just push with a nice constant pace, you should get a nice straight, accurate cut. How'd we do? Dead on, accurate, end to end, just right. Now, we'll let y'all pass that around. Now, as far as top to bottom, again, for some reason we got just a little bit of a tilt. If you're going to do some extremely tall wood like this, make sure that your fence is as tall as whatever you're cutting. That way you've got support and you don't get that tip or tilt, okay? All right, now that goes over resaw. Yes, sir. Oh. Well, you were raising your hand. Now you got to ask a question. Thicker wood, 1/2 inch, 3/2 per inch. Nice save. All right. All right. Now, this is for 1/4 inch or smaller blades. Completely different from what we just went over there. That one, you don't want it touching the blade in any way, shape, or form. This is completely different. This is called a blade stabilizer, and this is strictly for 1/4 inch or less. Yes, sir. There should never be drift on a bandsaw, ever. There should never be drift in a bandsaw whatsoever. And anybody that tells you that is not setting the saw up right. Now, everything that I've just showed you, if it doesn't work, you make sure you get my card from my father, and I can guarantee you I will answer questions within 24 hours, okay? I've been with Carter for 16 years. I've been working with bandsaws for 22. Everything that I've just told you wasn't something that is in a book. Matter of fact, any book you pick up will tell you put the blade in the center. Any book will tell you make sure everything's coplanar. This is my own personal experience, so take it for what it's worth, okay? All right, now, you'll notice I do not have to take the table off on this unit because there are no guides underneath the table to adjust. If you've got guides like this, just back them away. This is a specific guide that is for 1/4 inch or smaller, okay? It is set up so that, number one, make sure we've got it unplugged. Number two, we're going to adjust that blade so that the deepest part of the gullet is where? Center of the wheel. Take the stabilizer, drop it right into place. Bring it up against the back edge, and I think we can see this on there. And you want to push the blade forward 1/8 of an inch. Spring load that blade. Tighten it. Now the first time we do this, and this you may want to take a look at here as well, on the wheel. Don't do that again. Notice the blade comes way forward when I roll the wheel because I've pushed it forward here. So we're going to use our thrust adjustment to bring it back so that the deepest part of the gullet is back in the center of the wheel. That way the blade is sprung into the groove. How many of you have tried to cut into something and back out only to have the blade pop off the saw? This eliminates that. How many of you would like to be able to get perfect straight up and down cuts when you do bandsaw boxes? This takes care of that. How many of you would like to be able to turn within half the distance that you would normally turn with any blade? We don't have side guides, so now the blade can flex. But here's the best part. When you cut on a bandsaw, most of the time you kind of feel like it's hard to make the turn. That's because with a guide like this, the back edge can pivot and move and slide. So that means the center of pivot is constantly changing on the blade, making it very tough to follow a line. Now the back edge is in a groove, it can't move. Poet and didn't know it. Okay? Now the center pivot never changes, so that means it makes it much easier to follow a line and cut. Now, let's close this up. We want to make sure that our table is level. Which I can tell you right now, it's not even close. Oh, sorry. Thank you. How we doing? Okay, good. Thank you, whoever said that. We're dead on. Here we go. All right, now, just to kind of give you an idea, and if y'all have been around the booth, you've surely seen this, and this will take all of about 1 minute of your life. Move that dust collector so we keep all of our friends on the front row. Friends. What I'm doing here is a simple three-dimensional cut. Anytime that you do something three-dimensional, you want to cut the front. You want to cut the front. I'll tell you right now, we just lost power. Are we back up? Are we running? Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3. Come on. Come on. There. Hey, we are back. Okay. Now what did I do with my piece of wood? Y'all, you're welcome to fire me if you want. We lost juice. We're back. Thanks, Pop. All right, now we're able to back out, like I said, since we sprung load that blade into the groove. Now, where I was at, I believe, was anytime that you do something three-dimensional, you want to do the front view, then the side view. If you're doing four-dimensional, front view, side view, then top view. And as y'all can see, we have the front view of that reindeer cut out now, okay? Now, we'll take the top off, give it a toss. We want to be able to see where to put the horns, the head, the neck, the body, and the legs. Leave the bottom piece on so we've got a flat surface to work with. Now remember I said it's nice to be able to make a nice sharp turn. Now the front edge can flex instead of binding between those two stationary points, ruining the blade. So we get half the distance. Now here's kind of where, and think about this, I don't care how good you are on a bandsaw, you will not cut any faster than a blade can track. That being said, we'll do a quick rundown. Of our deer, okay? I will pass that around. Look at there, reindeer can fly. Okay, next thing we want to do is, yes sir. Absolutely, and as a matter of fact, you can change them in and out in less than 1 minute, but I've tried not to Carter commercialize this, so I'm trying to make sure that we stick with the program. So I promise you, after the class, I will give you all a Carter commercial, okay? Now, next thing that we're gonna do is our bandsaw box. We'll just use a little of this green wood. Slide right by y'all here. Pops, can I get a marker, pen, something? Thank you, sir. Now, if y'all have seen these boxes up there, they're pretty basic, okay? There's not a whole lot to them, but you can't really tell where they're cut in at. You always want to follow the grain. That way the cut line looks like a grain line and people can't really see where you cut in. We'll just use a piece of this old green wood here. And all we want to do is just kind of trace around it. Now, all bandsaw boxes are made pretty much the same. And yes, I did just steal his pen. So what we've got here is just the outside design of the box. We'll just follow that right on around. Now, remember I said it's nice to be able to cut perfectly straight up and down? I wasn't kidding, especially in thicker wood in bandsaw boxes. So now we've got the outside design cut, okay? Now we're cutting green wood, so I shouldn't have to move the dust collector. It should drop down pretty quick. Now, if y'all do not have a quick release on your saw, if you don't have two saws, you're gonna probably want one of these if you start doing bandsaw boxes, because you will see how many times I swap from saw to saw to do this one little box. So we've got the outside design cut. We're going to set our fence up to where it's about, maybe 1/4 of an inch. And we'll just cut that box off. And I just don't have any place. Usually I set it right here on the table, so we'll do that. We've just cut the back off. Yes, sir?
Now, why did you go to that blade?
Because we need a straight cut. And when you glue that back on, you don't want that edge wavy at all. You want a nice, straight, accurate cut. Now we've cut the back off. We can see that our grain is running in this direction. So we're just gonna cut in and around and leave maybe 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So now, for the most part, we have already done the full outside of that box, okay? You would glue the back on. Don't worry about this filling it. Actually close it and glue it shut. What that does is it gives you less kerf around the drawer so that the drawer isn't so sloppy in the box, okay? So the outside, like I said, pretty much is done. The last thing we've got to do is our drawer itself. Now you want to cut the front and the back of the drawer off. You can't cheat and just make 2 passes. You do have to actually cut front and back off. Then the last cut that we've got to do is the inside of the drawer. Now, if you look up here, you'll notice that some of these boxes, they look identical, just one smaller than the other. That's because what I've done is I take the last piece and just start over and just slowly make some progressively smaller boxes. Take our drawer. We would glue our drawer back together, and now we've got basically a full bandsaw box. Don't make me look bad now, come on. And you got your full bandsaw box, okay? Now, as you can see, 90% of the work is in finishing it. That's why I don't finish, okay? All right, last thing we're gonna do is this snake, and we're gonna get y'all out of here so you can enjoy the rest of the show. And then I'm gonna turn y'all over to my father's capable hands, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have as well. What did I just do there, folks? I opened the saw and didn't unplug it. Y'all got to keep me on my toes. Oh, okay. We'll just open up another 1/8 then. I thought that was a 1/8 that was hanging up there. What? Huh? When? What did I do? Oh, gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. Can I say I was feeling shy and nervous? All right, now all we did was just switch that little old 1/8 or that 3/16 for a 1/8 because we've got to be able to do some real tight turns here. Now, anytime that you do snake work, flex work, first thing you want to do is shape the snake in whatever shape that you want. If you want the head to come up like a cobra, then you've got to have the wood in that shape, okay? The second thing you have to do is drill the hole, because if you cut this key and then try to drill the hole, it's going to crack it almost every time. So, that being said, let's take, I know I set that piece of wood down here, right there. Right down above our work. And we're going to imagine that I have already drilled the hole, and the only reason I'm using square stock here, okay, is it's very simple to get a hold of. You can use round stock, make sure you plane the bottom so the flat's always on the bottom. And then I usually plane the side just a whisker so I know exactly where 90 is. The only reason I started using square stock is my wife, bless her heart, decided she wanted plant hangers that were square, not round. I've learned not to ask. So the first cut is to make a key, okay? Now I'm going to lay this, I can't get near that. I'm going to lay this on the table. You want to make sure that you lay this out in the order that you cut it. You get it out of order, I'll tell you right now, a day is a terrible thing to waste. They are impossible. If I get them out of order, I throw them away. That's how tough they are to put back together. Now, from here on out, it's the same cut. The best accessory you can get for doing snakes is an iPod. They are the most boring thing in the world. I don't care whether you like Pink Floyd, Bill Gaither, Garth Brooks, Bach, Beethoven, get an iPod because you're gonna need it. Remember the four corners of the table, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, in that order. The wood is pointed at 1, straight, 2, straight, 3, straight, 4, and out. There's one piece, okay? Rotate the wood 1 time. Again, with it pointed at 1. Straight, 2, straight, 3, straight, 4, and out. It's 2 pieces. Y'all starting to get the hint here? It's the same cut over and over and over. And when it's 22 feet long, trust me, my neighbors thought I was some sort of a weirdo with a bandsaw in the front yard, because when you do a 22-foot snake, you need 44 feet of swing. And my shop does not have 44 foot of swing. We'll just do one more cut and put it back together for you here. And all we're doing is just sliding everything back together the exact way that we cut it. And just like that, instead of having a solid piece of wood, we now have flexible wood, okay? Now, that goes over resaw setup, small blade setup, bandsaw boxes, and snakes. Now, I have 3 more things I want to cover, and we'll get you out of here. Number 1, make sure that your tables are good and waxed. sand them down and wax them. I like to use a boat wax or Johnson's paste wax. Remember, a bandsaw pulls everything down to the table, so if it's smooth, it makes it much easier to make your turns and twists, okay? Number 2, if y'all enjoyed this seminar, please let them know up front. If you did not enjoy this seminar, please let them know up front. That's the only way we can improve and make this better for everybody. And last but not least, thank you all very much for your time. I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you.